Hey, it's Jordan here in Flint. There's a local meeting going on right now regarding the ongoing class action lawsuit on behalf of all the residents against the state of Michigan. Here with Joyce, a resident here, and you have just a powerful, tragic, horrific story. How long you lived in Flint for?
About 18 years.
18 years. And in 2014, obviously the water was switched. Talk about what happened next for you, your family, and particularly your son.
Well, when the water was switched, there was a big commotion in the city. I saw people like toning in with dirty water. I saw people talking about dirty water. Then I saw people sitting on TV drinking clean water. I'm from the traditional that I trusted the government. I trusted the science, I trusted the engineering. And then all of a sudden, things start to happen with my son. I got a call from Hurley Hospital and woke me about, I would say anywhere after midnight. They asked me to come and have my son put in the hospital. And they would give me the guardianship paper that I had been fighting for 2.5 years or 3 years.
Put in hospice?
Hospital, that's what they wanted.
And what was going on leading up to that point? What was the experience?
All I know that he was in the hospital. He always go there every month. After he spent up his Social Security check, he go to the mental ward and stay there until the 3rd of the month. So it was just one of his normal routine thing that he does. And the medical records would show how they bill the state every month when he goes there for 10 days. And then that's when I got the call all of a sudden. I said, what do you mean? I say, Joseph is bipolar. Why do you want me to put him to sleep? Then they asked me the question, what country has he been in? And then we could no longer treat him. So they began to really push these paperwork very fast until I was just kind of overwhelmed. Then I went and got my son. Remember, he didn't stay with me. Then I went to get him, and I saw that he had deteriorated very bad. He looked very weak. Discoloration of his skin. And he called me, and he was begging me not to let them put him in hospital. So I went and got him. But he just kept deteriorating. And because they wouldn't treat him mentally, he was almost like a wild man without a soul. I couldn't reach him. He disappeared. He comes back. He disappeared. We got to go find him. And then I found him again. He had some type of flesh-eating disease or something. And because Hurley wouldn't take him, I couldn't get too many people to take him. And I brought a doctor in the house. She said that she'd been in Iraq for 28 years, and she'd never seen a case like my son.
And he was drinking the water here in Flint.
He was living it wholehearted because he lived in the heart of Flint, wherever he was at, because he was bipolar, and they hangs together, mentally ill. So they was hanging together. When the doctor saw him at my house, she questioned, she said, what country did Joseph come from? I never seen a case like this in my 28 years, and she was a doctor over in Iraq.
Because his skin was so,
Right.
off.
Yeah, so all of this has began to deteriorate. So because she had a relationship with Hurley Hospital, she went and had them commit him, get him cleaned up and fixed up. And when we did that part of it, they let him back out, but he kept deteriorating. I found him again laying on a sidewalk, and I asked him to come home. Then McLaren decided to go ahead reluctantly to take him. When McLaren has taken him, he was very, very ill. But when I left him with McLaren, they said we got him quiet down, and I said, well, I'm going to be in Pontiac. Give me a call. Then when I'm in Pontiac the next day, I get a call from U of M. Want to know, what do you want us to do with this patient? I said, how did you get him? Your son been resurrected from the dead. He flew in a helicopter. We wasn't even aware that the patient was coming in. McLaren dropped him off. We do not even have his medical records. What do you want us to do?
What does that mean, resurrected him from the dead?
Whatever they mean. When I left him at McLaren, he was on ICU. They said that he had pneumonia, a severe case of pneumonia. They was questioning me whether he had been out of the country.
And were they, at that time, was anybody in these hospitals talking about the water here?
Everybody was talking about the water. But it's still, the light still didn't quite come on, because then it focused me to my son. So I get this call from a nurse that was waiting on him, and I went back to do research. She said, "Ma'am, I went to check on your son. The room was wiped as though he had never been there. They wiped him, just cleaned it up." She said the room was empty, everything was gone. She said it took them almost the next morning to tell her what they done with him. So UFM had him. So when I gets to UFM, he said, "Ma'am, we just giving your son 2 shots. Legally, they would put an elephant to sleep. What country did this young man come from? He has no liver. He has a quarter of a lung left. He has the worst pneumonia you can ever think of. His heart sits in a pool of maggots and pus. He has no immune system. His blood cell, only red blood cells he left is his eyeballs, and the bacteria is going after that. What country did Joseph come from?" Then, I don't know, I was still looking for the truth. And I said, "You're the third person. You guys are asking me to do a hell of a thing." I said, "You can call it whatever you want it. I'm calling it euthanize. Why are you guys pushing me to put this boy to sleep? But you asking me where he come from." I said, "If you are telling me the truth, if you're saying this is the truth, then, let my son go." They began to dismantle him. Somewhere between the dismantling, sending him off to rest,
What do you mean dismantling?
they took all the life support off of him.
And at that time, had they told you what was going on? You said bad case of pneumonia?
Well, they said pneumonia. Then they started talking about some type of bacteria. Then they started talking about it. His immune system was gone. They started talking about his lungs. 1/4 of it was left. That his heart, something was maggots or something was eating his heart. So,
But no question to you, to anyone, how much water was he consuming?
I don't think that McLaren had notified UFM of that they had a Legionnaire breakout in their hospital. I don't think UFM was really notified that Flint was having this water crisis. When I finally got the truth, I guess if you want to call that the truth, Joseph woke up doing hospice.
In hospice?
He woke up. And when he woke up, he regained his rights. I don't know what the conversation was, but my son ended up in a cab from Ann Arbor to my house with his butt out, with his clothes on. With his robe on. And he knocked on the door and said, "Hey, Mom, you unplugged me. Mom, they're saying that I'm dying. The only way I believe that I'm dying is you have to do it." And he started breaking down because the dope that they had given him broke him down. And I couldn't get him back in the hospital, so I called hospice. Then I get this call, "Is the patient with you?" I go, "Yes." "You have 48 hours to get him down." In the meantime,
He was young. He was only
39 then. And I'm raising his son. So I had to get hospital involved in it very quick, somebody to help me. And I'm thinking they was gonna help me, but they just left me 2 bottles of morphine and said you have 48 hours. And I couldn't get him down because he was fighting so hard. So I begged him. I had to really beg him to let me put him to sleep. But all the time he kept saying it was the water. Then I would listen to the media, and Dr. Karen Weaver came public and told us to stop drinking the water. That was the first truth that I have heard. And then I looked at my son, and he said, I told you it was the water, but you didn't believe me. I said, no, I didn't. And
Because the state at the time was saying there's no problem.
the state was saying there was no problem. Then when we got a new mayor, the mayor came public, but it was too late for him. And that's when he made me make a promise that if he would lay down, that I'd talk about his story and tell people it was the water. So here's a 16-year-old son holding his dad down and my husband. And I had to give the morphine so quick and fast, you know. They called me, if he down yet? I said, no, he's not. If you run out that second bottle, we'll bring you another bottle. Then they started telling me to add other stuff to it. It was horrific because his flesh started falling off. And then he taking his last breath. I washed him up and rolled him over, and his flesh fell off of him. And
As he was dying.
yeah, as he was dying. Because the whole thing was they wanted him, somebody wanted him out of the picture. And then I began to put two and two together. Then I get a call from PBS a few years later, Frontline, and they was concerned about his death certificate. And they did their own investigation. I said I had to have him cremated. The money that I had for him to bury, a lady stole the $7,000 from me, so I couldn't bury him, so I had to cremate him. And keep remembering, they canceled my insurance on my house during the same time because my grandson fell through the shower because the wall corroded in one of the shower. So you can imagine the stress that I was under.
The water corroded the shower.
I'm 2 blocks over from GM Truck and Bus. Oh, wow. And so the insurance company comes out and canceled my policy. He told me it didn't matter whether I fixed it or not, they would not renew my policy. I paid $2,600 a year for insurance that it does not include my plumbing and my bathroom. I had a grandson, and I had to pick my wars. My grandson is 8 up here. He has psychic mental issues.
And he was having rashes? He was having rashes?
To this day, he's burnt up from here all the way down. He was a very smart kid. I got him through high school. Tried him at Baker. He couldn't focus at Baker. I got him over here at Mott, and I think Mott is doing pretty good with Flint kids. And so I told my grandson, let me put my son and your dad away first. Then I have to come back and handle my grandson. So I had to pick my wars by myself. So when PBS got a hold to the story, they did a thorough investigation. They went back and looked at what would they treating? The medical records show that it was not treating him from pre-existing condition. It had to be some type of third world bacteria. It is ruled that Joseph didn't have to die. They choose to let him die because McLaren didn't want him in the hospital. Hurley did not want him in the hospital. So he was one of those kids. What do we do with? And they dumped him in UFM lab, University of Michigan, Ann Arbor. They didn't know what to do with him. So then they dumped, in my opinion, they put it back in my lap.
And did PBS or your separate inquiry find that he had Legionella?
I don't think they tie it to it because of the conditions are similar, so similar to Legionnaire. They also did the research that right after him, right in my own community, 19 other people passed with those similar conditions. So that's why they're thinking that it was over 100 and some resident died with possible Legionnaire, but they was writing it off as pneumonia. And his condition was so close to Legionnaire. And so that's what I advocate for. If they really just was honest with it, I truly believe in my heart he had Legionnaire. When I went up to Lansing yesterday, listened to the other people's testimony and looking at their skin, my son had those same problems.
And to be clear, he wasn't in a third world country. He was just in Flint.
He didn't even have a passport. He was just in Flint all the time. So he never had a passport. That's what was so confusing. But when I was trying to get him help, they kept turning me away. Ma'am, we are not to see anybody but 6 years old. When they come to this water, he must be 6 years old or pregnant. So then they began to turn me down. Even with my grandson, they wouldn't even treat him.
This is McLaren?
All the hospital, Hurley and McLaren. So they would not treat him. And they kept saying that we've been ordered not to discuss this case. Only 6 years old and pregnant women. So for that whole period, I couldn't get any help because that wasn't ordered by the government.
And you're dealing with your son. I mean, this is horrific to watch this. Skin coming off and your son dying.
It was the most horrific thing any mother wanted to see. I remember when my husband was really started to focus, when my son go in the shower, he was screaming, yeah, but I'm thinking, well, maybe because they're not giving him his mat. And I said, you're hallucinating. He said, no, it's burning me, Mom, it's burning me. So my husband was cleaning out the shower after Joseph got out of it, and he ran upstairs. He said, hey, go downstairs and make him pull his hood and stuff off. And I said, what is it? He said, this is his flesh I'm picking up off the floor. And I went downstairs, and my son had pressed his face out, and he had Scotch tape, and he was taping his flesh back on his face.
After he got out of the shower?
So I think he knew that he was losing his flesh, and because he always kept his head down and like that. And I said, hey, pull your hood off, pull your head off. But I caught him because he had already smoothed the flesh out, and he had this Scotch tape, and he was, he was putting his face back on.
How are you handling this? I mean, I know not well, but you said you had to pick your battles. So your grandson, dealing with him, your son had just passed. I don't know if you were having any health problems, but
they said that I had a retina in the back of my head that's detached itself from my eye, and the blood just shoots up. They don't know where it come from. They just want. So I found out that I could be having elevated blood pressure because I never had blood pressure before. I was pretty healthy. So I have to attribute to maybe it is the blood pressure. What caused that pressure back here? And so I will eventually lose that eyesight, in that eye. I used to take the shots. The shots are $2,000 a piece. And my insurance will pay for up to so many, but they take the needle and run the needle all the way through your eye and try to take the pressure and the blood out of it. But I just hadn't focused on myself because I hadn't had time. Then I started working in the school. I was concerned, how are they going to evaluate these kids? And watching my grandson, how he struggled so in school. So
And your grandson, before the water switch, was he having these learning troubles? And
no, he just went in totally withdrawal. He went into dehydration. He went in that bedroom after he did what he did with his dad. He only come out of that room to go to school, and he goes back in that room. He doesn't go down in the room where his dad died. He doesn't talk to people. He just go and do what's required of him.
how old is he now?
He's just turning 19. He did get to vote. He wanted to see the Flint River when he was 16. I took him to the Flint River, and he looked at the river, and he went back upstairs, and he doesn't come out.
There's so many heinous parts about this, but I'm curious, Governor Snyder and his people, who knows, maybe the state was telling the hospitals not to say anything, but you, as a taxpayer, were paying for their defense of cases exactly like your son's. What is that?
What bothered me the most, I was a single parent in Detroit. I always raised a single parent, single mom. And I was able to keep my son, African American, you fight for that. Kept him out of jail. He won the Coleman scholarship to go to Langston University. I did everything to keep him safe and, to make him not be a menace to society. But what I couldn't give him during his dying days was a clean glass of water. And I was bathing him in the same thing, soaking those wounds and washing his face, and as he was screaming and yelling, I couldn't give him life. I couldn't give him that. And he was begging me, Mom, you can't fix this, can you? I said, no, I can't fix this. But what I can fix is I'm going to fix this by campaigning against dirty disaster capitalism. I'm going to open my mind the way I vote, the way I look at. We done got so caught up in education, but we done lost the spirit of humanity. Anytime you can sit and put this upon me, I had my share with the government. But this was a painful thing that I have to live with, because he was begging me to give him another chance, but I only could go about with what I was seeing. And could I have done something different? I don't know. Did I have the truth? What was in that water? I didn't.
And what year did he pass?
I think he died October 18, 2016. 17, about 3 years. And it was, I don't know what else to tell nobody, that I promised that
The state had just admitted that there was a problem.
the mayor had just admitted, the state admitted nothing, as far as I'm concerned. If she doesn't do anything else right, if they want to say, When she told that truth, and I watched her take that truth to the street, that's why I advocate that if water is going to be a commodity, then I advocate that woman sits on that water board. I want the men hands off the water because we have a relationship with water that I don't think men could even comprehend. Even when Flint couldn't take a bath, my husband just as contented and I'm just as frustrated because of that relationship that we have with water. And if that's the case, we do not need a bunch of male over our water system. I would like to advocate that women take that power and let us run our water system. It take a really different person to do that to a human being. What I also advocate is for mentally ill people and people with compromised immune system that we have a crisis, but they neglected that area. Actually, they forgot about it, and because we have a tendency to think that you're less of a human. My son was never homeless. He just chose that lifestyle. But neither here or there, he was a human being. And they kept passing him off like he was nothing. And he was begging, and I was begging them. And then they me 2 bottles of morphine. And I'm telling her, I said, ma'am, he's jumping, he's running. She said, he's burning up alive. You got to get him down. I said, how do I get him down? By any means necessary.
What I don't understand, in a situation like that, usually they don't just send you home to your family. That's a very unique situation with skin coming off and things like that. So it kind of comes off to me like they just wanted to push that problem out.
McLaren pushed it on to U of M, which was not their problem. U of M probably realized something. And who wants to be known as with that problem, Legionnaire and all of this. So when he woke up, and I remember he has a strong IQ, he has a strong mind. And when he woke back up, he was afraid of the hospital. He always said they was trying to kill him, and he was very suspicious of him because he kept complaining it was the water. And so that's what blew my mind was that they, Ann Arbor cab company hospital, drove him all the way from Ann Arbor, dropped him off, blew the horn, and left him sitting on the porch with his butt out, with a pair of pajamas on, no shoes on his feet. A neighbor friend of mine helped me get hospice, and then hospice wouldn't treat him unless he signed a do not resuscitate form. They wouldn't touch him. And so he was then forced to sign the do not resuscitate form. And then when they did that, I'm thinking they're going to bring me other stuff and then IVs. And she said, you have all you're going to have from us, ma'am. You have 2 bottles of morphine.
Have you taken action against the hospitals or thought of taking action?
That's the problem. I have spoken to some attorneys, and I remember talking to some attorneys about this. I remember a couple of attorneys talking about suing the hospital about human rights. But I don't even think I had a clear conscience who they are. I'm just not getting to the point where I've been running for a very long time. And this 5 years made me realize that I've been running for a very long time for the truth. And we finally look like we're trying to halfway get there. Just tell the truth. Then people can make a decision if they have the truth. I couldn't make a decision with a clear conscience And I always will remember him, his last words. I will always remember that conversation.
Can you tell me a little bit more about how he was, what he was like?
It was like he knew that his time was near.
No, I mean as a person. How was your son as a person?
As a person, he was always that person. If he believes something, he has a very IQ. I don't care how they say he was about bipolar. We use bipolar people are very smart people. He was aware of that. He was very aware of his body. He knew that he was in trouble. And when I went and picked him up off the street, and I said, hey, he said, yeah, Mom, I got myself into something. And so he was aware of that. But he was very aware that whatever happened to him was in the water, because whatever was happening to him is only created worse when he got around the water. So he was very aware of that. It was the water. And I think when he told me that, we talked, and he just told me, well, I guess I'm going to lay down now. But I told you it was the water, but you never did believe me. And I said, no, I didn't. So I no longer believe science. I don't no longer believe doctors. I'm done with them.
You mentioned the term capitalism, and I think that's important because a lot of these scientists making declarations about Flint's water get money from the federal government and other agencies. So I'm not saying everybody's a liar, but
Usually when I'm out, the young ladies from South Carolina, when they ask me to come down, what I advocate, your body speaks to you. Actually, your water speaks to you. Are we listening to the water that we drink? Are we actually listening and hearing that water and seeing it different? So you know your body. I don't care if that person, whatever condition it is, they know. Nobody can tell you what you know. And you cannot rely upon nobody else to treat you but yourself. And so I went to South Carolina, and they didn't believe it like I was. But then I was able to get them to turn around and look. These people, look, I'm telling you, listen to your neighbors. They're not out there fighting for no reason. Mm-hmm. Those signs are not there for no reason. And so I advocate to people to pay attention. When you got a grassroots leader out there like this young lady here and did some research, I advocate for people to listen to their community. So we have trust in the community, but we don't have trust in government.
And, it's interesting because this week, the 5-year anniversary, you see a lot of national media stories, and it kind of talks about the issue as trust. But they say, oh, well, the government says the water is meeting EPA regulations now and everything's dandy. However, we're talking to residents who still are getting rashes, like 5 years later. Rashes, hair loss, you name it. So how is it a trust issue, or is it still the water?
It's a trust issue. I don't, just because you say, okay, well, we're going to raise it up. You can have lead in your body if it's under 15. That's just switching data. It's not nothing. It's just like data change based on who has the power and who has the money to make it. If you tell a lie long enough, it will become the truth. And so now we're living under a system. We have an identity crisis. Nobody knows the truth anymore, from the White House on down. Mm-hmm. What are we supposed to do? What are we supposed to do? Who do we trust? Nobody knows the truth. Who's lying and who's telling the truth? So now we have a serious identity crisis. Only person that we have on is if your community and your neighbors. We have to come together and we have to get this truth out the way that we know it. I don't believe because you tell me something EPA said. I'm done with that.
And do you believe that the water is safe alongside Flint citywide, like the ex-governor said last year?
Now, here's what I'm at about this water. The damage that has been done, my house probably will not You probably even look at my pipes because I'm in a high tax base area. That's where the money comes from. So I'm in one of those areas where, that's property tax value. So nobody's going to really want to shuffle that too much. That's my opinion. So we don't get a lot of service in my area. I have media come to my house and one of the big media, and they want to do this great story on my son and I, and he pulled up in my driveway and I hit the garage door and he walked into my house and see cathedral ceiling, and he took his camera and folded back up and told my grandson, "You're not the story that I want to tell." What kind of bull crap is that? That water did not choose by race and economic conditions.
So this journalist said, "This isn't the story I wanted to tell."
Walked in my house, looked around, and looked out in the garage, seen the Mercedes, all of that, and looked at me and said, "This is because they want to tell a story of poverty." So the voices that, like myself, we never did get heard. That's why we're doing what we're doing, because the media came in and told a poor man's story, and not understanding that, yeah, we have a high poverty level here, but yet and still, the water did not choose by income. It didn't select if you're on this side or the north side. That was not the issue. The same child in my neighborhood deserved the same right as a poor kid. Mm-hmm. But it's not that way.
My last question, the media covered it a little bit more this week because you have an anniversary, but other than that, from what I could see, there's no media attention on Flint, especially the water. Even the local media here that I've seen kind of just passes off whatever the state says.
What didn't happen is that a lot of the people that was fighting became 501c3. Also, we went into economic development. It was killing the economic condition of Flint. The water crisis was a disaster. Right in the midst when we was completing the master plan, and I was on those different boards and moving the city forward. Then here come this water crisis, and then they found out that it was killing the investors. So they shut it down, get rid of the pod, shut it down, and started working on economic development.
So it sounds to me like because the puppet masters want a, quote, master plan, which to me means gentrification, we can't have a water crisis anymore.
We can't have it with investors. I'm 100% in moving this city forward, and 100% in that when Flint does better, there may be a home that probably worth a couple of $100,000 now is only worth, maybe if I can get $50,000, I owe more on it than it's worth. Maybe if we could move in that direction, and we are moving in that direction in pipe repair, and creating business, but the voices still have not been heard.
But what about, this isn't talked about a lot, but you could change those service lines, but what about the inside of the homes? Because you have a lot of damaged pipes.
And that's where I'm at with my insurance company. Keep remember that the homes in Flint that I moved in was a pre-existing house, and it wasn't built from the ground. So I don't know whether that shower could have been, and the more I look at that house, it could have been an add-on. I know that there's a galvanized pipe, somebody has told me, in that shower. My concern is that if General Motors, and I'm only 2 blocks over, and that's a high tax base area, they love that area over there. That's milk and cream and honey for the city. If you correct the General Motors problem, then there's a possibility, and Flint River runs all the way through my backyard, so it's a creek that runs in that neighborhood, and there's overfloods all the time. And so could there be a possibility that house something is wrong with that pipe? So what the insurance said that, okay, we're going to insure your house. I had to find a company that would do it. They would insure it, but they do not insure the pipes and the bathroom. So therefore I paid $27 $2,600 every month, and it does not include the pipes and the plumbing.
So for all you know, how do you know what's coming through your pipes as far as the water?
Right. And if they basing it upon some statistical data, as they were saying, the data that they got, not giving an account that people remodel their house, not giving an account that all home should be looked at, especially when I've been whining about this insurance for the last 5 years, and that I'm retired, my husband retired, I got to get this insurance down. I cannot continue to pay $2,600 a month for a house that's only worth $50-some thousand.
Right. Last question. I mean, you've gone through probably one of the most horrible things I've heard. What should people around the country, we also have viewers around the world, what should they know? Because I think a lot of people are now kind of focused on the presidential race and whatever Trump is doing crazy today. But I always tell people, yeah, it's about Flint, but like there's water problems all over the country. So don't think it's just Flint. What do you want people to know about, what you were saying, the capitalist greed?
I think what I want people to really focus on, money is not don't be caught up in because this president is allowing you to make a few ducks, because when they decide they don't want you to make a few duckies, they're going to take it back anyway. What I want people to understand is hear what the person's heart is saying. They're talking to you. They're talking right now, they're at the 1%. If you're not in that 1%, you're just like me. They're making deals right now like Nestle has done with your water. Pretty soon we all going to be drinking out of bottled waters from the same place. How they doing it, I don't know. But they're going to poison my water. But then you're going to sell bottled water back. The infrastructure in the United States is so bad. The water is so contaminated from this auto industry and pesticides and all of that it's just a noise maker because it's a distraction. I think this president is the biggest distraction a man can have, because once he's gone, the biggest disaster we ever going to see is going to be right in our face. I have nothing else to lose anymore. I think, listen to me. If you do anything, listen. It might not be you today, but somewhere somebody, some mother is going to have to make a decision. And this decision is going to require you to separate the truth from a lie. And that's where we're at. We love the lies because it keeps us from hearing the truth. So I want them to look at Flint. Listen to what I'm saying. You can find out if a politician has a spirit of humanity. Just listen to him. Hear what he's saying or she's saying. And if you don't feel that spirit of humanity in there, don't vote for that person, because they're going to make you get a business, or they're going to help you. What we need is clean, safe, affordable drinking water. And what we need is fresh, clean air. Those two is essential for human being existence. Because without that, money is not going to help. And right now, the air we breathe in is in danger. So what are we going to do now? We don't even know tomorrow if we're going to have air to breathe, because we don't know. The earth is speaking. The earth is contaminated, and nobody's listening. What does it take? How many people have to die to make y'all think that this is not real? Flint is doing pretty good. and revitalizing sustainability, and every city should do that. What I'm saying is that we have not been made whole. My water bill is $260 and $270 every month. Every month. That's what I pay for my water bill.
You drinking from it or bottled water?
No, I don't drink that water. I bathe in it. I wash clothes in it, scrub my floors and cars. But even if they pulled all the pipes, I can't mentally put that glass in my mouth. I don't think I will. I will leave tomorrow, but where am I going? Where can I go? And I got a 19-year-old kid that's stuck as though he was 14. So where can we go? You know, we're stuck here.
Because you know those Republicans, they say, well, if you hate it so much, why don't you just leave?
Yeah, it's easy for them to say because they have the money and to do that. But most of the time, people work all their life and they invest in their home because that's our retirement, and that's how, you know, we go back and pull out the equity out of your house. And keep in mind, with the last Republican, we lost all our retirement. So me and my husband, we lost everything in the stock market. Then I got into it with the Republican with my business, and so I lost my business messing with them. And now the only thing we have is the house, and the house is not worth a quarter. So where else can you go? What can we do? You know, and I stand here to fight because I believe Flint is a great place to live. I'm standing here because I have nothing else to lose. I want to see justice for the kid. I want to see justice for the family. I want to see, could a government come in and do the right thing? And we got a new government, so she has a big responsibility. Can you make us whole again? No. But can you give us something where we can choose if I want to stay or do I want to leave? Give me something to make us feel, I can easily say I'm sorry, but some type of restitution. Give those kids something that they don't have prison written on their back because I'm in the school, and it's a pipeline to prison system. So give the teacher something that she can work with. So I advocate, and that's my life, and I hide my pain behind the fight. And that's what I want to see. I just want to see the community made whole again. I want people to vote, you know, because the lack of voting and the ignorant in voting created this problem. Because if we don't change the way we vote, we just gonna put the same person that's got us in this mess back in this place. And that's the problem, you know. 61 precincts in Flint, and out of 61 precincts, only 13 or 14 or 20% of the people voted.
Right. And you had a governor who put in an unelected emergency manager to hijack your democracy here.
Yeah, eliminate emergency manager. Just eliminate it. Anything to take away democracy, eliminate it.
Can I just ask you one more time to say your son's name and anything else you want?
No, I do this on behalf of my son, my only son, Joseph Eugene Pounds Jr. I'm keeping my word. I'm holding up your son, and that's pretty much it. And we got to go back to the base of humanity, loving one another, caring for one another, listening to one another. And we got to get, capitalism is good, but when it gets dirty, it's just evil.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Hope you enjoyed that last video. Hop on over to statusquo.com where you can sign up for our email list and become a member for as low as $5 to $10 a month. Membership is how we grow. That's statusquo.com/join. And remember, join our email list so we can grow the revolution with you.